Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and I'm super pumped today to be joined by Aaron Chapman of Security National Mortgage Company. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Doing really, really well, Jamie. How are you doing, brother?
Doing great. It's a little cold here in Maryland, but that's what you get in November. So
I'm in Arizona, starting to get a little cold everywhere. There was ice on the car this morning, so
there you go. Okay,
we look
I
forward
was.
to that, though, man.
Yeah,
We are spoiled when we get it cold. We love it. We'll go walk around with no shirts on in this weather.
definitely. Yeah, I was actually in Scottsdale. I don't know how far that is from you, but probably a couple months ago for a mastermind. That was pretty neat. And I know people make fun of people when they say dry heat. It's just dry heat. Well, dry heat is not as bad as humid heat, in my opinion. But
I 100% agree with that. In fact, some of the people from that mastermind I hook up with when they come into town, I used to be part of it. Some buddies,
awesome.
they're coming to town, and it's 15 minutes from my house to go up there and hang out and
Got it.
good time. But I do travel a lot, so I get out into the South and the Midwest during the summer, and you guys can have that crap. I mean, from people say, where would you live
Yeah.
at different times of year? It's like, I might stay in Arizona during the summertime because it's not only it's tolerable, but it's not so much the heat, it's the bugs. It's like that
Gotcha.
the bugs you guys have over in
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
West
Absolutely.
on the East Coast are insane.
Yeah.
Those things, they
Yeah.
hunt you down. In Arizona, they run from you. You're their prey.
Yeah, we've had a serious mosquito problem this year. But so for our listeners out there who have not heard of you, Aaron, could you give us kind of an overview of who you are today? What do you have going on today with your family, your business? Who are you today? And then we'll jump back into your backstory.
So I'm in the mortgage industry. I focus in the conventional lending space because that's there's 1.4 million people in the United States that do this job, and I started focusing on the real estate investor back in 2003. So right now, I'm ranked in the top 10 in the United States for the amount of transactions that I close. Ranked number one in Arizona according to Modex, who tracks all this stuff. I've got 4 kids. Three of them are married. My youngest is 16. Wife of 26 years, and I've been walking around on this rock since 1974, and I've got a background of cattle ranching, heavy equipment, mining, welding in the oil fields, and then stumbled my way into a driving truck and stuff like that, and then stumbled my way into the mortgage industry in 1997. And here I've just stubbornly kept trying to work it out after problem after problem after failure to a point now we're at a pretty remarkable spot, but doesn't mean I don't have another ass whooping coming down the path.
No, that's a great synopsis and a great way to put it. Yeah. So before we get into some of the adversity that you have faced and overcome, what does your business look like today?
Today, being the fact that we're conventional lending to real estate investors, it's still very, very good, comparatively speaking, right? The industry as a whole is down 65%. I just ran the numbers on my team as of the end of October, we were down 26%. So significant difference from what's going on in our industry. Doesn't mean that we're not due for something to come and keep beating us up, because it is getting increasingly hard to keep business coming in because there's a lot of fear out there. But the more that you can help real estate investors understand that this is a time that you want to dig in, because this is when other people walk away from amazing deals, because there's a lot of amazing deals out there, still awesome deals. The problem is we've sold the shit way too wrong for too long, because it was so easy to make any deal work because of cash on return metrics since 2010 up until now.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't work so well. So they're having a hard time selling using the exact same sales pitch, because that was the easiest sales pitch in the world. Now it shouldn't have ever been a pitch. You should have always been analyzing the deal from the depth of it. And the greatest asset in any transaction is the leverage. And if you can lever it 30 freaking years, it's going to perform, period, unless you bought a piece of crap that's just eating you alive.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, I love single family rentals. We've got a portfolio in Maryland and Florida, and like I mentioned before we hit record, I'm mostly focused on mortgage notes today. But I will say the leverage is one of those things about rentals that it's just not there with mortgage notes. As far as buying the note itself, you can do it, you can make it work, and that's a whole different rabbit trail. But it's much easier to walk into a bank and say, hey, I want to, or contact you and say, hey, I want to buy this single family rental and make the numbers work, than it is to do that with the purchase of a mortgage note. But and you mentioned before we hit record that your team is 30 some individuals. Is that right?
32 staff members. To achieve what I've achieved as far as many transactions that we do, a lot of times in the industry, you'll find that a person like myself, a licensed loan originator, will have like 6 or 8 more licensed loan originators underneath them out ferreting out business and bringing it in and putting under that person's name. That's not how I do it. I'm the only licensed loan originator on my team, but I have all operations staff put in place, and we put them in, and we're actually rewriting our operational procedures as I speak. Because now that things have slowed down a bit, I'm able to really tighten stuff up that I've wanted to do for the last 3 years. In fact, was it the CEO of Toyota back in the 70s referred to something as stream theory, not quantum physics. This had to do with his business. He said Toyota is like a stream bed, and you could flow only so much water down your stream bed. But naturally, you would have big rocks appear, you would have dips, you'd have valleys, you'd have humps in it, and it would impede the flow of the water in your stream bed. When it impedes that, it would overflow the banks, and you would lose that forever. So what you need to do periodically is dam it up, bring the water level down where you can see all these imperfections are, and clean it out. I couldn't do that for the last 3 years. I kept adding and adding and adding and band-aiding to make the business work, and doing everything on the fly, and putting more hours and more overtime in. Now the business slowed itself down. Because if I tried to dam it up before, it would cut new stream beds for other people to capitalize. I couldn't let that happen. Now the business has slowed it down enough where I can go in and dig all stuff out. So I spend an enormous amount of money getting consultants in here, going through this whole thing, paying hours for people to look at this and really, really dive into it. So when things open back up and our water levels come up even higher, we will be able to do more faster than anybody else in the industry. So I'm excited about the slowdown. I'm excited to do what I've been wanting to do. My team's freaking out. Right. And don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of freak out back there because I've got enormous expenses without enough coming in to really handle it. But I'm hanging in by the skin of my ass for that last second. So when everybody else is getting ready to throw their hands up, I'm still here, and we're going to get the lion's share.
Well, and like you already alluded to, you didn't start this 2 or 3 years ago. So, I'm sure there will be new challenges and everything, but you've got the experience to weather the storm for sure. So let's dive into your background. I know the reason I reached out to you was I read a passage in a book that I obtained at that mastermind, actually. And you wrote part of this book, and you talked about a motorcycle incident. So I don't know if you want to start there or before that, but I'd love to touch on that a little bit, and kind of, if we can focus on some of the adversity that surrounded that and pull out some lessons learned, and then we'll, move closer back to today. That would be great.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind talking about that whatsoever. In fact, I'm going to take it back just a little bit.
Sure.
To kind of give a little bit more color to the background going into that. I spent my high school years on a cattle ranch, right? A very, very simple business plan when you're talking about dealing with that kind of stuff and developing cattle and selling it for beef. And then from there, went to the oil fields of Wyoming. From there, drove truck, ran heavy equipment. I found myself in the mines of northern New Mexico with my dad. And it was awesome. My family sold the ranches. Partnerships went bad. And, I've seen bad partnerships, and it was ugly. Well, when the mine job is one of the best I've ever had. You're several hundred feet underground, you're drilling, you're playing with explosives. It was a great job running heavy equipment. Loved every bit of it. They started shutting down the project. Well, I had a great resume. I didn't think I'd have a problem getting a job. When I came back to the Phoenix Valley from northern New Mexico, I had a wife and infant son here. I'd come back and forth every 13 shifts. I couldn't find a job to save my life. I kept getting turned down for opportunity after opportunity because I was what they kept calling overqualified. I didn't understand this. I could either do the job or I couldn't. But in this situation, they're telling me I couldn't do it because I know now why I'm overqualified as a business owner, that they're going to go somewhere else. Well, I remember going to get, I was completely out of money. My wife gave me a coupon for free diapers because we're completely broke and couldn't even afford diapers. I was on my way to another place to drive truck to haul landscape rock for $10 an hour. Went in there, got interviewed, shot down again. As I'm driving away, wiping tears from my eyes, I couldn't believe I was in this financial position. I'm driving to a grocery store. My gas light comes on my truck. Again, another punch in the face. Pulled up to a gas pump outside a grocery store. The only form of payment I had was a debit card. Swiped it, got a decline. I mean, I said a prayer when I swiped that thing, and my prayer I thought was answered. I arrived with
Right.
my truck and I found some change. Then I started walking that parking lot and I found enough change in what felt like a couple hours to get 2 gallons of gas. That was back when people carried change and back when gas was 80 some odd cents, right?
Right.
So I don't know how that would work today. I went in there with my coupon, got my diapers, and as I'm coming out, I'm trying to avoid eye contact with anybody because it just felt really, really, I felt really shitty. I mean, the one
Mhm.
item I had to get a coupon for free. As I'm walking out, a person recognized me and I tried to avoid him, but he ran me down, asked me how things were. I explained the same thing. He said, let's go to dinner. I'm like, dude, I can't afford dinner. He goes, no, I got a gift certificate to Red Lobster from a client. So it turns out he used to be the guy who did all the schedule work when I dug swimming pools, and now he was in the mortgage industry. He took me to dinner, me and my wife. He shared this industry with me, slid me a business card for a branch manager at a broker shop. I made the call, and when I went to go meet with him, I cut a foot off of my hair. I shaved. My mom bought me some business-like clothes, so I looked like a professional. I went in there, and I started as a telemarketer in December of 1997. And that's a miserable way to start in this industry, but I got started.
Sure.
I got a job back to driving truck to Sacramento and back, then running heavy equipment again. I worked 2 jobs for a year before the rates went down below 7% on owner occupied, and I could replace my income. When I did that, it started to work, and I got to where I could make a really good living. And then 2008 happened, and I was doing really, really well coming up to that. I've been going Mach 2 in my scalp on fire again, working sleeping 4 hours a night to try and keep things moving. I decided to jump on the bike, spend 3 days riding through New Mexico, clear my head. I loved the reserve of Mexico area, a lot of windy roads. The destination was the ride. 15 minutes into that ride, I was doing 70 plus miles an hour. A kid came into me, pushed me in another car. I hit the throttle to get away from him. So I'm thinking I was 80 plus when I took that tumble, and I went skidding to a stop. I ended up with 17 broken bones, a collapsed right lung, and a memory that only lasted 3 minutes. So I don't know if you've ever been to Arizona in August, but I laid on the pavement on August 8th of 2008. Eight's always been my lucky number. So a day of eights, I laid on that pavement at 12:24 in the afternoon. I baked for about 20 minutes till paramedics got there because of the heavy 3-day weekend traffic. And the first memory that comes to me was waking up in the hospital bed that night, 12 hours later, asking where I was at, what had happened had to be the 100th time. My wife was repeating, and it finally stuck what had occurred. But I had intermittent memories of things. So it was learning how to walk again, had to resuscitate my breathing. But then the worst of it all is, after all that process of learning how to walk again, was training my brain on how to remember things, because it would pinwheel all the time. So what I did was I carried a notepad with me, and I had two people. I mean, the entire industry was fragmented. All the people I did business with were out. Nobody was left except for two people. My mom, Mary Chapman, she was a realtor here in Arizona still, and another realtor, Carolyn Irby, who I think she's still cranking out there. I just don't do much in Arizona as I used to. And what they would do is they'd call me up, they'd give me a referral, and then call me back 5 minutes later. Hey, did you call that person? I'd be like, what person? It's like, get your pad, get your paper, and then have me write it down. And they're very patient with me. And then I call these people and take notes. And if I look on my pad and there was an uncrossed out thing, I'd know to call that person. There was a lot of people I would call because I failed to cross it out and say, hey, I'm Aaron Chapman. So-and-so gave me your name. It's like, yeah, we just talked.
Wow.
I'm like, really?
That is...
What did we talk about? And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, let me just explain. And
Sure.
there's a lot of people that, they'd walk away, but it's amazing how many had patience for me and helped me. So by the grace of God and by the grace of others, was I able to get my memory back. I basically trained it back myself with other people's help. And I learned how to walk again. And once I learned how to walk again, I learned how to hike again. I learned how to run again. Then I went into the mountains of the superstitions. I became a technical rescuer for the sheriff's office for 9 years. I led their technical rescue unit, which is all ropes and high angle and helicopters and that kind of stuff, until it just got to where they didn't need us as much anymore because they got more equipment and more funding. And so I retired after 9 years of absolute amazing badass experiences out there, where it was my life and other people's lives were on the line a lot. And it was great. I had a really good time.
Wow. I feel like there's we've got about 4 or 5 episodes in what you just shared. That's amazing. It's crazy, scary, awful, amazing. I mean, that and this is I've said this on other episodes. The risk we run into in this with my show, frankly, is, oh yeah, we just gloss right over all these massive challenges that people go through, and we don't want to make it sound like like it was easy or quick and painless at all. But obviously, we can't focus on all the details. But so as far as like, how much time are we talking between the accident and when you were kind of back to 100%?
So that was, you see here, the accident was August 8th, and I didn't start with the sheriff's office till the end of 2009. So it was late 2009 when I started there. And then, so it was about a year of back, and I wasn't even really back. I mean, I'll just be honest. The thing is, I'm so always driven to do, but I didn't enjoy laying there and healing. And that was a problem, to the point that I actually did more damage to myself than I really needed to. It took me 10 years to get really rehabilitated back to get to where I wanted to get, because of all the soft tissue damage that I didn't allow time to heal. And not until literally this last year was I able to get back to a point of really physically being able to do any dang thing I want right now. My body was not, I've torn both shoulders since then. I've had to have both shoulders repaired, all this crap, because I pushed things too hard and I didn't allow things to heal the way I need to. Now I'm in some of the best shape I've ever been. I can do any damn thing I want physically. And I feel awesome, but I'm 48 years old, right? And I'm going to know that I'm on downstroke, but I'm going to take care. I'm never going to heal again. I've broken 56 bones in my life. I spent nearly a decade of my life in recovery, and I'm done with all that crap. A lot of soft tissue damage, a lot of joint damage, all kinds of crap. I'm done.
You're done with that. Got it. No, that's crazy. So, and you said, what was your business looking like at that point when you had the accident?
It was good. I was still decent six figures. Everything was doing well, but it's like the whole world came to a halt right around the same time that I went into the hospital. It's really kind of crazy. A lot of people were doing okay, and then everybody got fragmented. So to me, it was an absolute blessing, because think about this. During that period of time, a lot of people were losing their homes. They're going into foreclosure, having to go into bankruptcy. Well, when I came out of that, let's tell you, I went into that 190 pounds, maybe 10% body fat. I got wheeled out a few weeks later at 156 pounds. It just completely, I cannibalized my body to heal. But when I came back out of there, everything was obliterated and the phone wouldn't stop. I had houses, there were a bunch of houses at the time that were just way underwater. Everything that I had in the market was gone. I went in worth about, somewhere close to about $3 million. And I was a negative net worth of 1.5 million when I wheeled out in that wheelchair. So when the creditors were calling, I had a great story to be able to offer. Say, hey, what's your fax number? I'd fax them just my first week's medical bill, just the first week, was $1.7 million. The total value of all my expenses in the hospital for that couple of weeks that was there was over almost $3 million. So when I dropped that on people, they backed up real quick, and it's awesome how the creditors say, hey, what can we do for you?
Sure.
And so I was able to negotiate with people. I had a certain amount of money left. That was it. That was squirreled away. And so I talked to every creditor and said, this is what I have. Will you take it? And then I worked it out with every single one where they're all willing to take a certain amount, and I paid them all off and they were gone. I went from massive credit card debt to nothing. I went from being able to I had to get rid of a bunch of cars. I had one left. Actually, I had two left, so we could drive and whatever. And people backed up off of me to let me keep my house, let me keep my two cars. I started over, not quite at zero, but pretty freaking close. Right. Wow. So it's good to be able to go from needing $18,000 a month just to exist, so I could exist on nothing. So now I live that same life where I could really exist on a house payment, and that's it. Everything else is paid for. I make way more money than I ever did, and I don't spend as much. I invest a shit ton, so I have it scattered all over the place. The market right now is having its way with it, but for the most part, I could literally take my Jeep and my camp trailer, and I'd be happy now.
That's awesome. So it was primarily the medical bills that led to the financial challenges, along with the fact that your business, essentially dried up at that briefly.
It was the business that dried up, the extreme debt that I had because I was living like an idiot.
Gotcha.
Because I had heard once you break 5 years in the industry, it's only up from there. When I hit 5 years, I was making like 300 grand. I'm like, it's up from here. I can get stupid, and I did get stupid. Come on, $18,000 a month just to break even every month is where I was at, and I didn't make any sense whatsoever how I was operating. So for me at that point, it was the debt, it was the loss of income, it was a complete reset of the entire industry. Is what I was sitting at. And so I had to come back to start over and building new contacts, new business, but I didn't have anything eating at me financially. It was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened, because everybody else was on payment plans. They were on bankruptcy, all that crap. Everybody just wiped their hands at me and said, this guy we can't mess with because you're not going to get anything out of him. Because I looked so bad on paper physically that it worked out. It literally the best thing could have happened. To me, it was a blessing. While everybody else was fighting with their creditors, I'm like, bam, trump card bitches, and they back up.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So
I paid for it for 2 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So 2008, 2009 essentially was a complete reset for you from many perspectives, from a business standpoint, from a health standpoint. Sounds like you were already married and had some children, but so maybe not so much from a family standpoint, but in a lot of ways that period of time was a complete reset for you. Is that fair to say?
True. And it was a reset in a family standpoint, because I had 4 kids and my youngest was about 2 years old, who's now 16. And I'll admit, I wasn't the greatest spouse or the greatest father at that time. I was so focused on everything else and all the things that when you're laying in that bed and you can't do shit and other people do things for you, and you start seeing who's coming around and who's putting their energy into, you start to get to know, it's like, wait a minute, who are these people? And I think I like them. And then you've got a 2-year-old jumps up and does something really, really cool and really funny, and you laugh about it, and then it hits you and it's like, I'll never see that again. That moment's gone. How many moments have I missed? Now, does it mean I have like done an about face and I'm the most amazing attentive father and husband in the world? No. I still got to drive around. I got to build business, all these things. But I have a very good friend of mine, Alan Stein Jr. He's got a phenomenal book out there. Look him up. But he likes to say, be where your feet are. And I have found myself becoming better and better and better at being where my feet are. Yeah, I scattered and I stretched all over the place, but I'm intentionally building my business to allow me the opportunity to be present where I'm at, and the same for all the people that work for me.
That's really good. Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that, and just type A people in general, not just entrepreneurs, but anybody who's always pushing. It's like you always get the next goal, the next thing, and you never take the time to stop and appreciate where you are now. And it sounds like like you're saying, you've built that into your schedule in your business now, or at least you're working at that.
I'm getting better at it. Let's put it that way. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect. I've got my first grandkid. She's, I think, 12 weeks old now. So I'm starting to see some of the things that you've missed and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. My daughter and husband live next door. It's a great life.
So cool. So yeah, like we said, you're not looking for the adversity that you've been through. You're not looking for that to repeat itself, of course, but it sounds like your priorities were really well defined coming out of that, and you've built your life in an intentional way after that motorcycle accident and the ensuing kind of rehab. And so now you mentioned to me something about I think 2015. Can you walk us through 2009, from 2009 up to today, and touch on some of the challenges you've had during that period?
So I came out of that, right? It's, I worked for Countrywide at the time, then Bank of America took over while I was coming back. And just let me tell you, going to work for Bank of America, in Aaron Chapman's opinion, was like serving time for something I didn't do. But at the time, I had a client come across that was going to buy what they call an FHA flip. You buy the house, whoever rehabbed it, they've owned it less than 90 days, and FHA would let that happen, but Bank of America wouldn't. So I left. I took that with me to another company. Another person within the office at Bank of America said, hey, I have the exact same thing. I'm going to flip it to you. So I took it, and the other company said they'd do it. I called the seller on it, which happened to be the same seller on both properties. Said, I'm going to go ahead. I got these deals. I'm going to get these done. They said, well, can you do FHA flip? And I said, yeah, I can. They said, well, everybody says that and nobody actually does. Well, I made it happen. I closed that deal within 30 days, both of them at the same time. They called me and said, you got to come to our office. So I came to the office to introduce my entire staff. They say, every person talks to him before we accept a contract, period. Well, at the same time, this big turnkey outfit that takes investors all across the country to buy turnkeys was just coming into Arizona, and they targeted them for one of their sources of business. So they brought them in. They had several lenders already working with that turnkey outfit, that marketing company, if you will, and they were putting their lenders. And this outfit said, no, if they don't talk to him first, we do not accept your clients. That opened me up to the turnkey investor coming into Arizona. And all you have to do is be very, very good at communication and perform every single time. So we performed. I had one person working with me. Her name was Ellen Schmidt, and we performed every single time. We worked our guts out. Sometimes we were only sleeping 4-hour nights. We were coming in at 5 a.m., leaving at 9, 10 p.m., that kind of thing. We got deals done, and we were very consistent with it. Well, because of that consistency, one of the original lenders with that turnkey outfit, he cornered me in 2015. Actually, at the end of 14, he said, "Hey, we should merge our businesses." I'm like, well, I ignored him because I thought it was kind of dumb to even consider it. Well, then I had to call him about 2 weeks later because he was like a mentor of mine. I'd call him with problems and he would guide me through it. So I called him, started talking to something. And he goes, "By the way, I was really serious about what I said to you." I said, "What was that?" He said, "It's about us merging our businesses." I said, "Well, tell me what that looks like." So he explained it. And then I just had surgery on my left shoulder and had a rod removed from my right leg from the original motorcycle accident. So I fly out to Utah with a cane and a sling on. So it looked like a bad chicken plate, one bad wing and one bad leg.
Right.
So I sat and they explained what this looked like, and it looked like a great deal. So we merged our stuff together. I pushed all my database into his, but legally, you can only put the name of one name on every deal. So we chose his. Yeah. And after 6 months, he decided he was just going to destroy it all and keep it for himself. And I had to start over at zero, November 1st, 2015. And what happened there, I fought for him not to do that, but he was insistent, so we had no choice. But I still had deals in the pipeline of his, so I was getting paid on those deals while they were closing out. And I sat down with my little team. I had a couple people with me. I said, "Okay, what are we going to do for the phone ring when the phone rings? Because it's going to ring. It always does. We still have a brand out there. We still have an email that's going to come in. What are we going to do?" We mapped out the life of the deal, and we decided how we're going to do it, and we started getting better and better at it. And that following year in August, so that was November 2015, August of 2016, we're at this big company-wide meeting. And the CEO's up there talking about production and who's what. And my ex-partner's there, and he's ranked number 2 in the company. Lo and behold, I was ranked number 9 out of 300 some odd people. Wow. I didn't realize that. I just had my head down.
Sure, grinding. Yep.
100%. And then later on that year, I became in the top 5. And then by the end of by the next year, I was number 1. And I kept cranking. Well, he left to go to another company, and then another company. He hasn't been heard of since. He's been out of the industry. He destroyed it.
So let's because a lot of our listeners may have either formed partnerships or thought about it, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on partnerships in general, or what you would do differently there. Lessons learned from either forming it or just the time that you spent in partnership with him.
So in forming, I think we had a great partnership that could have gone awesome, right? But the problem is we didn't define the roles well enough. Gotcha. We also, the other thing is there was nothing really legally saying you couldn't pull this crap anyway. And a person can do whatever they want. The thing is,
sure,
what I found is a partnership needs to be where the two people are so opposite and accomplish such different things that one person can't say, "Hey, I can do it all myself." Sure. If you can do it all or they can do it all, then it's not a partnership. That's just right. I've seen some amazing partnerships. I've seen some guys do some amazing things, and I wanted that. Yeah. But what I developed is I don't need a partnership. I can still be at the helm of it. I just need good people at places where I suck. And that's what I started doing, is putting people where I am not good, but it allows me to stay where I am best, and then pay them extremely well to where they won't want to go anywhere else. Because they can't do their superpower and get paid so well doing their superpower. And that's what I've decided now. And that's how I've been developing this. Does it mean that this can't flip around to something, teach me another lesson? It sure as hell can. But for right now, it's worked pretty dang well.
Sure. No, that's awesome. So so from that low point in 2015 to 2016, it sounds like 2015, it was the low point. And then by 2016, you were already building your own business back up. So for those in the last 7 years, I mean, that's some amazing growth. What would you say were a couple of the main factors with that growth?
Really, the first thing is I never allowed my brand to die. I kept growing my brand, even though we were under his brand, if you will, or our new brand. So you never let your brand die. Always be unique. Always be a person that people want to know. And so that's right. And then I just started getting out there even more so. A lot more time on the road, a lot more face-to-face time, a lot more speaking to people directly, a lot. And so now it's, the brand went from, what it was to now it's my entire goal is becoming the most well-known person in my space. And I would say I've achieved that, but I haven't achieved it well enough that I'm satisfied. the intent that I have here is when people hear the name Charles Schwab, they think, trading and getting
Sure.
on trades. I want them
Yeah.
to hear the name Aaron Chapman and think real estate investment finance, not that
Yeah.
it's attached to a person, because I want that name to endure with respect to what it is that we accomplish. And
Sure.
so I do it differently than any sumbitch out there. There's not a single person that looks, acts, or does things the way I do it. We've now taken to the extent of digging deep into understanding the real estate investor better than anybody else, understand what they're really seeking, not what you're being sold, and then creating tools to help them do that. I got an app out there to help show people that when you're leveraging something in a high inflation or just a plain inflationary environment, how you're never paying back what you borrowed and that you're winning just because you leveraged it.
What's the name of that app?
You go to the to your app store and just go get the QJO investment tool, which stands for the Quit Jerking Off investment tool. The reason I call it that is because people that are spending time just shopping for rates are wasting their time jerking off on things of zero value. If you really understand that getting the leverage done and getting the right property to keep reasonably rented for the entire time you own it, you can raise rents on it. Just levering the damn thing is going to pay you a 10.25% return on investment, just getting somebody else to pay off the loan.
Sure.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the point of appreciation, get to appreciative tax benefits. Then you get to cash flow and cash on cash return. To me, that's the lightest metric. We have in the real estate industry poorly sold the worst metric as something to be the one you focus on, because when the market shifts, you can't make those numbers work anymore. And now you got to come up with something else. Now you need rates to go down, or you go find like a 5-year arm or 7-year arm to supplement your stupid sales pitch. Don't do that, because when people go get in those things, we don't know the future well enough to be able to say that you'd be safe in one of those instruments. And we've had a lot of foreclosure due to a poorly closed deal.
Sure. Got it. Now, before I fire off some questions for you, what are you looking for? And you already touched on it as far as the market conditions, but what are you looking to do in your business as far as altering things with this high rate environment and high inflation?
So really, it's just continue to build the relationships with everybody and helping people to understand where the real value is. The tactics and strategies might change, but the principles always remain the same. The principles have not changed. And so as a result of that, because those principles are the same, it's just allowing people to understand the principle and wrap their head around it, that being pulled into a tactic or a strategy benefits somebody, but it isn't the person buying the real estate. It's benefiting the person selling you the real estate and the person selling you the note or the loan. Not you, the investor. You are actually somebody's prey. We are as humans are the apex predator and fall prey to no other species except other humans. And right now is when the predators come out. And so
that's good.
For me, it's standing my ground and not allowing anybody to sway me for what is sexy right now or what's selling right now. I'm going to stick with my principles and what I know will benefit people, not what's just going to get the deal closed.
No, that's awesome. That's really good. All right. So a couple of personal questions. What do people misunderstand about you?
It's a good question. I don't know, because I'm very, very forthcoming with every damn thing.
You do seem like you wear your emotions on your sleeve if you were wearing sleeves, and
yeah, they know exactly who they're dealing with when I walk up, and I don't allow for a lot of guesswork. But I think probably the one thing that I get very underestimated if you don't know who I am. A lot of the time when I come into an event and I'm not known, and they'll say that there's a real estate investment finance expert walking in that's been doing this for 25 years, they have a certain idea in their mind of what they're going to see step onto a stage. Then I walk on there and I don't look any different than I look now. I might have a button-up Dickie shirt or a plaid shirt, still wearing the steel chainsaw hat, and I'll walk up with a single braid or double braided beard, and they're like, what in the hell is that here? And I appreciate the fact they asked that question, because if people don't ask questions, they can't hear the answer. I need them to ask a question, because they're going to listen intently to hear what do I have to say. And I have noticed from feedback from the audiences that I will be on stage with some pretty big names, and people forget the big names, but they'll remember me because it completely changed their mindset. The big name, they expected everything they got out of him, but what they got from me was way different than expected.
So I wasn't planning on asking this question, but it popped into my head. I saw a short clip. I part of the mastermind group I'm in is a guy named Sharon Srivatsa. He's part of the group, but he posted something, a short video about, how his mentors have always told him, don't care about what people think about you. But the reality is this is my opinion, is that you do, if you're going to be in business and you're going to try to add value to people, you've got to care about on some level what people think about you, because you're not going to be able to listen and add value and actually solve their problem. So I'm just curious, how do you frame that from your perspective? What are your thoughts on, worrying about what people think of you?
So for me, I don't worry about it as much because I go after everything from the most benevolent position I can to give people the best information I possibly can from the knowledge that I have. And also do it from a perspective of being very, very comfortable with who I am and what I offer as far as my appearance, my speech, and the actual message that I'm bringing. As long as I'm doing that from that space, I really don't care what they think, because if they do have a negative thought process to what I'm offering, there's nothing I could possibly do to have drawn them in, period.
Yeah.
If all I did was change it and sugarcoat it and then costume myself up to be able to meet what they expect, just so I could talk to them to find out they're not going to like what's underneath the surface anyway. If all I did was sucker them in with bait, just for them to walk away saying I was lied to, then and truly I was lying to people with my appearance when I dress differently. Now, because I come up to them, I'm sorting through people immediately. There's a lot of people who love to invest their money in different things. I invest my money into people. I'm a people collector. I collect relationships. I fly first class, not because it's a comfortable seat, because the conversation is different. The people I get to meet are different. The expansion of my holdings as far as people is concerned expands all the time. I know so damn many people, it's ridiculous. And to me, even the guy who's serving me my steak and there's a place in Utah, Carver's, and I'm risking even saying this, it's in Utah because I don't want people to freak up my damn place. But when I walk in there, they know what I want. They actually special cut me my specific steak. But I walk in, they know exactly what it is. I get the exact same guy waiting on me, and I overpay every single person. I tip the shit out of these people. Why? Because when I come back, I get that service and better every single time. If I tip them one time more than I should have, and they don't live up to it, then that's the last time I deal with that person.
Sure.
Right? But when I collect people, I've got people all over the world. Wherever I go, they know who I am.
Yeah, that's really good. There's so many gold nuggets there that I haven't listened to all of my episodes again, but I think this is one I'm going to have to re-listen to. So what would you say, looking back, let's say if you had to give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that be?
Oh, I do maybe treat people differently than I did back then. I was a very, very angry person growing up. I could go to fists at the drop of a hat. I come from a Irish father and a Spanish mother, right? When they would hit heads, it'd be like a unstoppable force hitting an immovable object, right? And that's
right.
how my mind worked for a long time. I needed the ass beatings that life gave me to soften me to when it came to other people. I needed, and I think everybody does. If you want to be successful in life, you have to embrace the time you get the shit kicked out of you. And actually, I'm working on a book right now. It's done. It's written. It's in edit. Robert Allen is the one who's doing the rough edit on it and the forward, and then it's going to be a copy editor doing the rest of it. But it's in my voice, it's in my tone, it's in the shit that I say, and it's being very, very blunt. Sitting around a camp, like I'm putting myself in position, sitting around a campfire with 18-year-olds today, saying this is how life is. And get ready for the ass whooping. And you have the capability to decide the ass whooping you're willing to take to achieve what you want to achieve. But one is coming, whether you get it without knowing it or actually plan for the beating. But you can plan your beating. I've planned my beating more than one time with mind and pen, and I've achieved things that was unachievable in my mind until I wrote it out. But you got to pay for it, and it hurts. But it's so worth it to reach that plateau, or at least that point on the trail, and you're looking back over what it was. And I thank God that He put a lot of mist and fog on the trail, so I couldn't see how steep, how treacherous, how rocky, and how many poisonous serpents were on that damn thing, because I would have never walked it to begin with. And now I look back on it, and that hell was worth every bit of it. And I know there's more coming. I just know just one step at a time, and I'll gain get more ground and more knowledge and more everything just by continuing on the trail.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have a title for the book yet?
We have two of them, and I've
Gotcha.
been told to keep my mouth shut about them. So
got it.
Because I'm one that talks about everything, and Robert's like, dude, you need to shut up.
Yeah. If you could have coffee or a drink or something with any historical figure, who would you choose?
Right now, I mean, I'm going to go with kind of a cliche one, but Abraham Lincoln, the guy was fascinating to me in the sense that how he handled problems and how he told stories. I tell a shit ton of stories. We would swap stories like crazy. I love that conversation
Hmm.
because I think that there's not a story attached to a lesson, then it's not a lesson learned. It is more merely
Yeah,
just a statement. But when you
sure.
equate it to something that happened and drive home stories, things get
Yeah,
done. And for a person to be so decisive, another person, for him to be continue to endure it, beating after beating after beating, to be basically the greatest president that we've ever had in the strongest country ever, that faced a civil war and segregation. I mean, not segregation, but the Emancipation Proclamation, all the battles
yeah.
that he fought. That's an amazing individual to fight all those things. There's a lot of great people. I mean, don't get me wrong,
Oh yeah,
Washington's an amazing guy, whatever. But what Lincoln took on, and for
sure.
him to have gotten into that from all the beatings of his life, that's the guy I want to sit with. The only other
Yeah.
person I want to sit with is a guy by the name of Porter Rockwell, one of the most badass some bitches ever walked this planet.
And who is that? I feel like I've
It's
heard.
Porter Rockwell.
Yeah. Who is that? What?
So
I've heard the name.
have you ever heard of Wild Bill Hickok?
Yeah.
Okay, so the guy was killed in Deadwood, South Dakota, known as the fastest with a pistol in history.
Yeah.
Well, it was said that if he ever saw Porter Rockwell walking down the same side of the street as him, he'd cross the street and keep walking. That man is credited with killing well over 100 people.
Wow.
Been shot at like crazy, never touched by a bullet, and one of the meanest some bitches ever walked this planet. But also one of the kindest men that's ever been around.
Mm. So it is possible to be both.
Yes, it
Got
is
it.
possibly both. It's one of these things that you be what you have to be at the time that you're there.
Sure. That's really good. A little bit off the wall, but if you had to try a different business, entirely different business or occupation outside of the mortgage industry, what would that be?
That's a very good question. I've been so dead focused on this. It
Yeah,
probably goes straight into like commercial or residential real estate investments.
sure.
I just go full all the way into
All
that.
in.
If I had to go into an occupation itself, I'd probably start. I really enjoyed the automotive industry. I've done a lot of stuff there, and then probably get into that. And the only other one that I get into is guiding. You know, for hunts. I love to hunt,
Gotcha.
enjoy hunting. I've got
Yeah,
video crap of us moose hunting, whatever. I go do guided hunts.
that's awesome. Cool. Other than your own book that's coming out, what's a book or two that you would recommend?
The greatest book that's ever written, in my opinion, outside of scripture, is The Master Key System by Charles Hannell. It
Okay.
was a correspondence course in 1910. You get the course every month. Every week they give you a lesson. You'd read the lesson over and over and over again every day for a week and do the exercise at the end of the lesson every day. So what you're doing is you're training your brain on how to focus and how to push out things of zero that are just trying to take your attention from you. After
Mm-hmm.
24 weeks, you can pretty much focus your attention. What's awesome about that, in 1910, he talked about things mentally that was going on inside your brain that we didn't know about until the 2000s, when you got a guy like Joe Dispenza, who shows you in real time how the brain works, with the neurons connecting and firing and rewiring your brain. And he talked about this in 1910. It's an amazing book. It's $5.99 on Amazon. Get the damn book. Do
Huh.
not move forward without that book. Second greatest book, I believe, is Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
it couples that one so well, right? So this one's teaching you how to focus your mind, and the premise of Outwitting the Devil is that, you know, if in this interview with Satan himself, he says how he controls people is influencing them to drift. Well, if you can't focus on any one thing, you can't accomplish anything. So
Sure.
it tells you the outcome of you not gaining control of your brain, and here is the lessons on how to control your brain.
Wow, those two books seem like very relevant in today's world where we're so distracted by social media and everything else. That's really
Yes,
good.
weapons of mass distraction is what we're facing.
There you go. What about other podcasts that you enjoy? You have your own show, right?
I just do a twice a week. I do a video to my database, just explaining what's going on in the market and my perspective on it. I get a lot of people saying, "Hey, we can get you 10,000 viewers." I'm like, I don't want 10,000 viewers. I'm happy with 800 subscribers because it's targeted to them. Now, if other people pick it up, they pick it up. As far as, I mean, who doesn't listen to Joe Rogan, right? I don't listen to him all the time, but for
Right.
me, my head is down working, just looking at the markets and understanding how things are shifting. I do listen to National Real Estate Post very, very often, and Rogan. Those are, when it comes to podcasts, that's where I focus my energy. I have, of course, listened to some Andy Frisella. Who doesn't like getting punched in the face verbally over and over and over again? That's kind of nice, but that's where I put my energy at.
Got it. Awesome. So you've touched on this already, but how do you like to serve others?
Um, Really by being the absolute best person I possibly can be is how I serve other people. A lot of people ask me what drives me, what motivates me to keep doing and doing and doing and doing. Well, I have to be sitting on the boat at the time I was asked that question. It was one of Kevin O'Leary's business partners asked me that question. Well, I was sitting next to a guy I do a lot of business with by the name of Marco Santarelli, and I pointed over to him. I said, he drives me to do business, to do what I do. And he's like, what do you mean by that? How do I drive you? I said, you and your staff drop my name all the time. And because you do, I need you to look like a rock star because you drop my name. If I suck at what I do, you automatically suck at what you do because you're the one who gave them my name. But if you gave them my name and me and my whole team end up being badasses, that just made you a badass because you know us. I need you to become better and thought of as a better individual or a great resource because you recommended me. So I have to get better. That's how it is I serve other people, by ensuring that everything we do is to be better at what we do, not for us, but for those who are willing to drop our name.
That's fantastic. I haven't received that response. That's really good. So now looking back at the adversity, we've talked about the financial challenges, the motorcycle accident, your rehab, and then your partnership gone bad. And could you touch on 2 or 3 things that are kind of just lessons learned? I mean, we've already covered a ton, but just what would you say kind of comes to the surface when you think back on those challenges?
That the greatest blessings in life is the ass beating that you take, period. You will not, let me tell a story all the way back to 6 years old. I didn't go to kindergarten. My parents put me into a Pentecostal school because everybody said it was a great school, and they started me in 1st grade. There was a point in that where they kept us separate. It was first to senior. I mean, they had all 12 grades in this school being run inside their church. Well, we were off learning the alphabet as 1st graders, and we were going through every letter. And back then there was film strips. It was 1980, right? So it had these film strips that you had the music on a tape, and then when it hit a beat, you flip it to the next frame. Well, we got to the letter M, and it's about this mule named Milton. And the limerick went, Milton the mule, he made a mistake. As he read a map, he walked in a lake. Now, I'm 48 years old now, and I remember what I did at 6 years old. So 42 years ago, I remember leaning over to the little girl sitting next to me. She was my neighbor, at home, and also my neighbor here. And I sat next to her, and I redid the limerick. And instead of Milton walking into a lake, I had him pissing in a bucket. Stupid sounding thing, right? But that's what I said. She chuckled. My teacher heard it. She grabbed both of our ears, took us to the principal's office, sat us down where I had to repeat what I said. Now, the principal was a very, very, very big man. Well, he turned around, pivoted in his chair, reached underneath his desk and pulled out an aircraft aluminum briefcase, dialed in the code, ceremoniously cracked it open, and turned it so we could see the contents. Inside it was a paddle, a very, very ornate paddle with holes drilled in and all kinds of stuff, and a padded interior. He made us stand up, turn around, put our hands on our chairs, and he walked behind us and gave us both a swat. Now, I had taken a lot bigger beatings from my dad. My dad, I mean, he whooped our ass growing up. It wasn't the fact that the beating hurt or the SWAT hurt, it was the gravity of the situation. Now, because of that, and I knew I was going to face my dad that night and get another whooping. Now, how many letters are in the English alphabet?
26.
26. I had to Google that shit because I thought it was 26. So it's 26. 26 letters. How many do you think I remember the limerick for?
How many? I don't know. How many?
Just the one. Just the letter M. Why? Because I got my ass whooped for it. 42 years later, I remember the beating I took and every single word associated with that beating. We as humans have to get our ass kicked to learn the lessons.
Got it.
Now, unless you're going to go out there and learn the lessons directly and understand things directly and really, really focus on them, you're destined to take a beating to learn what you need to learn. Don't shy away from beatings. Sometimes you got to love the taste of blood. And a lot of times that blood you're going to be tasting is your own.
So are you seeking out beatings now, or are you just as you experiencing them, you're just framing it differently?
Well, what it is, as I experiencing less and less and less because I've learned from the ones I've had. Now, it doesn't mean that new ones aren't coming, but they soften as they go because you don't need the massive beatings to learn your
Sure.
lesson, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest lessons I learned, some of the biggest lessons I learned were just devastating at the time, but the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I like to always ask people, what's the best, worst thing that ever happened? Meaning the worst thing that could have happened at the time was the best thing that could have happened for you. And we need to embrace the times that we get our ass kicked. I like to say that there's this big ominous foot that's walking around kicking your ass all day, every day. But you've got to get up before the foot does. I think it wakes up at 7:30 because if somebody's waking up at 7:45 to get to work, they're getting the shit kicked out of them all the time. I wake up 4:30 a.m. and I go about my life with my purpose to get done what I need to get done before the rest of the world wakes up. And I'm never behind in front of the foot. I'm so far ahead of the foot that sometimes most of the time it doesn't get me. But if it does get me, what you'll find that when you get kicked, it propels you. You get up and keep running, and you'll be far ahead of it. It's when you lay there and lick your wounds that the entire world passes you and that leaves you behind. Don't lay there. Get up and get moving, and take what you just learned and apply it towards that next moment, and keep applying every lesson you've got. You'll be amazed at how far you advance quickly after a beating.
Man, so much good stuff. Wow. So Aaron Chapman, where can our listeners reach out to you if they want to reach out?
You can go to the Quit Jerking Off investment tool, right? The QJO investment tool is how you find it. In the upper left corner, there's a question mark. Hit that, it'll take you to my site. You can also just Google Aaron Chapman. There's only one bald-bearded redneck lender on there. There's a soccer player, a pastor, another author. You can also go to aaronchapman.com. I'm right there. You can look me up on YouTube. Just search Aaron Chapman. You can find my YouTubes on there. Again, another bald-bearded redneck with a steel chainsaw hat, right? There's ways to find me. If you can't find me, it's because you suck.
I would second that. It wasn't very difficult to find you. So no, this has been fantastic, Aaron. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing your story about these challenges you've overcome, and you're very real, and just the fact that we know that more challenges are coming, but you've been able to pull out these lessons learned, and I am positive that our listeners are going to get a ton of value out of this one. So is there anything else you want to share before we sign off?
That's it, guys. Just be willing to take the beating and learn from it. More beatings are coming. Try not to give yourself any more than you have to, because a lot of times the biggest beatings we take are the ones that were self-imposed.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks, Aaron. And to our listeners out there, thank you very much for spending your most valuable resource with us, and that is your time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.